I want to again welcome you all today to the brave space for our conversation about DEI today. So as I mentioned, we're going to begin our journey by first discussing cultural competency and its importance. Culture, by definition, is a combination of several factors that create a framework on who you are as an individual and how you see the world. These factors not only make up who you are from a perspective of your race, but also include your beliefs, your values, your traditional experiences as a person, your education, gender, and social status. So a lot goes into your culture. Cultural competency is the appreciation and respect for cultures that are different from one's own culture of origin. I want to underscore that respect and appreciation play a key role on our path towards cultural competence, as well as the acknowledgement of the factors that make individuals from other cultures and groups different but respected. Again, respect and appreciation play a key role here. On the other hand, prejudice is the opposite of cultural competency, as it stems from a set of negative emotions and stereotypes of a group of people. As you proceed in your work as a pro bono advisor, it is vital that you work through any prejudices that are present. We're going to talk more about that, to try to understand the experiences, beliefs, values, and social structures that affect how those you will be interacting with see the world. It's important to us to have a discussion on the factors that generally affect your beliefs about individuals from different cultural backgrounds as well. This is what we're going to call our cultural iceberg. As with all icebergs, there's an understanding that you will usually only see a small portion of it, with the rest being hidden. As such, there are certain behaviors or practices that we can see with our own eyes that inform how we're going to decide to treat or deal with other people. All the while, we do not know how the behaviors and practices came to be. The core values of a person based upon culture, whether good, bad, desirable, unacceptable, are the things that individuals have gone through based on their institutional influences that have helped create or mold their beliefs. In other words, when we interact with people from other cultures, we only get to experience the most overt behaviors, basically the tip of the iceberg. But all the while, there is a multitude of influences, including underlying beliefs, values, and thought patterns that dictate how those overt behaviors came to be. That's the stuff below. So let's dive deeper into what are those institutional influences I mentioned. For almost all people, they are varied and numerous. Think about the exposure an individual has had within their community growing up. How that exposure that they have had to the media or negative news stories over their lifetime about their culture or others may affect what they believe. What they learn about history or how their own history with other cultures is affected will affect beliefs. Education an individual has can play a part as well. Attending an underfunded school versus one with many resources plays a part in your perception of the world. So does one's experiences traveling. Think about this. If I grew up traveling the world and start bringing this up often with one of my pro bono clients who hasn't, imagine how that will feel to someone who hasn't had the same opportunities or influences. There are also many personal influences that we've had to deal with, including religion and family structures. These are things that we are taught in both of those areas that affect how we behave and our characteristics. In fact, most, if not many, of our biases may come from these two areas. We must also understand that many individuals have had personal experiences with discrimination that play a part in who they are today. Imagine a person that has felt that they have been unfairly treated when dealing in the financial services sector in the past. How do you think that might affect their interactions with you as their pro bono advisor? These are all things that we must take into account as we work with clients and try to understand the things that undergird their perspectives and behaviors and how they see the world. We cannot simply judge people solely on what we see when we first encounter them, i.e. not judging them by the tip of the iceberg. We must always try to remember that those behaviors are the sum of 1,000 inputs of influence throughout their lives, both good and bad. So because we don't have an idea of all their experiences or influences, we must remember that our relationships with our clients and participants should always consist of respect, empathy, genuineness, and warmth. We literally have no idea up front how this person became who they are, we must take that into consideration. I want you all to take a brief moment to think about when was the first time you learned about finances and from where? Many people get their info from schools, family, friends, the media, amongst other areas. It's important as a pro bono advisor that you understand there are a multitude of influences that those you work with draw upon in their background that affect how they view their finances. For some, they may not have had positive correlations with money based upon what they learned and from where. That is why we must take these things into consideration when we discuss finances with them. As we begin to understand other cultures and influences, it's also important that we acknowledge the lack of access to quality financial advice and equity in the financial services sector for many communities of color over the course of our history. There's a measurable wealth gap between communities in this country, which has been caused by many factors, including the historical lack of access to wealth building tools, mortgage market discrimination and redlining, a significant lack of quality financial education in schools or the community, a lack of access to overall quality education, and a trickle down of just having a dearth of financial role models available. It's critical that you not only understand, but acknowledge this historical lack of access and equity that may still be having an impact on those we plan to serve today. Even if these concepts are tough to understand, be prepared and able to show empathy to those you work with. Empathy is the key here. This graphic kind of underscores that point. African Americans and Hispanics are behind their white counterparts in ownership of retirement accounts at all ages of life. The factors we touched upon so far have played a major part in this, from the lack of education to not having this be part of conversations in their families and households. As pro bono advisors, you must understand this reality and what has led to it in order to be respectful and responsive to the varying behaviors and needs of those you're going to see and those that you're going to serve. So understanding all that, now we know what all that plays a part into who individuals are from different cultures. Let's discuss the 5 elements that must play a part in your journey towards cultural competency. First, we must acknowledge the cultural differences that do exist between us. We must be able to face the fact that people from different cultures may have a different perspective on finances than you do, and that's okay. Those differences do not make us any less greater, they just are differences. We have to acknowledge that. The second key is understanding our own culture. It's important to remember all of the cultural factors that influence how you learned about finances and all the things that you hold dear. Use that understanding to ensure you don't have any issues working with those from other backgrounds, and you can place yourself in a position to be helpful to them moving forward. If there are things in your culture or your past or your background that can cause an issue with how you view others, you must begin to understand that and work through them. Which brings us to the idea of self-assessments. It's important to also engage in a self-assessment once you understand your own culture so that you can acknowledge what barriers exist to you being able to serve in the most culturally competent manner possible and begin the process of looking internally and knocking down those barriers. That process begins by acquiring cultural knowledge. You want to acquire cultural knowledge and skills that show you genuinely care about the well-being of those you will be interacting with. So you're probably asking, how do you begin to understand a culture? One word, you learn. You must be intentional. Intentionality is going to be a key theme throughout the rest of the conversation, and have a desire to learn about other cultures from more than a surface level. So get past that iceberg tip if you are truly to move past any biases you may have in regards to how you view others. And lastly, when you encounter behaviors that you don't understand, you must begin to view those behaviors within a cultural context. Some cultures value saving, while others value spending. Both are okay and they can coexist, but we must understand them both while ensuring that we work with them without judgment. There are also things we should consider as we begin to have an in-depth conversation with our potential clients and our participants. So depending on their age, it's important to think about how you viewed finances at a younger age or their age, or if they're a peer to you or older, how you currently view and want to view your finances. That's going to help shape the conversation. Secondly, it's important to pause and acknowledge your personal bias again, and to work to do everything possible to move past them. We all have biases. I even have biases myself. But what will separate us is how hard we work to ensure those biases do not affect how we interact with those we serve. I'm going to say that again. We all have biases, but what will separate us all is how hard we work to ensure those biases do not affect how we interact with those we serve. Lastly, thinking about your top 4 qualities as a pro bono advisor. Lean in with those specific qualities as you begin to have conversations with your clients.